In the past couple of years, the MENA region has become a rising star within the fintech ecosystem. Is MENA the financial hub of the future? Let's find it out in this next session. The session will be moderated by Daniela Egli, Cyprus CEO at the Trading Pit, who will introduce her panel. Daniela, the floor is yours.
Hello. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. My name is Daniela Egli. I'm the CEO of the Trading Pit, a prop trading firm from Liechtenstein, which provides a trading ecosystem for clients to be able to succeed in their trading career. I would like to start today by inviting our speakers to introduce themselves. Abe?
Thank you, Daniela. Ladies and gentlemen, pleasure to be here. My name is Abe Karar. I'm the Chief Product Officer at Fintech Galaxy. Fintech Galaxy is an open finance platform company. We support financial institutions and fintech companies integrate seamlessly, provide open finance capabilities, including account information sharing and payment initiation capabilities across the entire sector. That includes banking, insurance, pensions, exchanges, you name it. Thank you.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. No, it's still good morning. My name is Kokila. I'm founder of KARM Legal Consultants. We're a law firm based out of UAE, and we've been working in the emerging tech sector, and especially with companies in the crypto blockchain space. And we've been working with them not just here in UAE, but as well as in Bahrain. And welcome to and thank you for IFX Expo for having us here, and look forward to this panel. Thank you.
Thank you, Kokila. Serena? I think it's on.
Right, it's on, right. Serena Sebastiani, hi everyone. It's very nice to see a bunch of crypto and fintech enthusiasts in this room today. I'm a director in PwC Middle East, focused on supporting the development of sustainable fintech and crypto ecosystem in the GCC. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. So we will dive straight in. MENA region is growing exponentially as countries in the region compete in driving innovation and diversifying their economies towards different areas of services and finance. Which are the top 3 leading countries in the MENA region in this area of fintech innovation? And what are the factors that contribute to them becoming the leaders today? Abe?
You know, this is a tricky question because I always fear that if I pick 3 countries, then the regulators will start to think that I'm picking favorites, but I'm going to try to be as objective as possible. When I look at the MENA region, and I look at the GCC in specific, and then look at the surrounding countries, you'll find some countries that have really accelerated when it comes to putting the right regulations in place, creating an environment that is conducive for collaboration between fintechs and financial institutions, building the necessary infrastructure, the necessary digital labs to allow these fintechs to innovate and to test and learn. And the countries that come to mind is number 1, Bahrain. Let's face it, as far back, Bahrain has always worked very hard to pioneer. Let's look at, one of the areas that I focus on, for example, which is open banking, open finance. They launched their open banking regulation. They kicked it off back as early as 2018. In 2019, they started to build out their own version of the UK standard, which is the Bahrain Open Banking Framework, the BOBF. And then the official phase 1, which was for account information, was enforced across all the banks in 2020, and phase 2 in 2021. On top of that, they were also the first country in the MENA region to launch a regulatory sandbox, which, as you all know, it's what helps fintechs have the ability to test in a controlled environment in production with financial institutions and provide the regulators the opportunity to test and learn, adjust their policies, and at the same time allow them to license these fintechs. On top of that, and one thing that I'm proud of, because we were actually the partners of the central bank in Bahrain in this, is in 2021, we launched FinHub 973, which was the region's first regulator-led initiative, which is establishing a digital lab that came with an open banking API sandbox, an innovation platform that enabled hackathons and innovation challenges and innovation programs, And we digitized, they launched the first digital version of a regulatory sandbox. Now, following in their footsteps, we cannot miss KSA. Saudi also in 2018, SAMA launched Fintech Saudi, which was meant to help accelerate the fintech development in the kingdom, in addition to help accelerate and boost financial inclusion. But on top of that, they also launched a regulatory sandbox, and I am happy to say that when it comes to open banking, they are becoming the new golden standard, in my humble opinion. The way they have engaged the market over the last year and the way they've set up these touch points and especially the selection of the use cases that will enable fintechs to add value, they were the first country in the region to create use cases that balanced corporate and retail. Bahrain only focused on retail. And their vision 2030, along with their financial sector development plan, is very much focused on fintech. So they're looking to boost the GDP by $1.2 billion, add another 6,000 jobs by 2025, specifically within financial services sector. And then in just 5 years later, 2030, they want to triple the number of jobs up to 18,000, and they want to increase the number of fintechs up to 525 fintechs. And I'd say last but not least, the UAE, and you've heard from Mohammed al-Balushi just before this session talking about DIFC. DIFC is the most developed free zone that focuses on fintech. ADGM is, just as powerful, really holding together, the registration authority, the FSRA, the Abu Dhabi courts, and then governed by some of the best practices when it comes to regulating some of the fintechs. But again, I always like to make a comment to my area and my domain, open banking. The Central Bank of the UAE is the first country in the region to say, nope, I'm not doing open banking. I'm doing open finance. Their first kick at the can is open finance. 3 phases that right from the beginning, they've mixed in payments and accounts. All the other ones always started with account data, then payments. They did it the other way around. They said, no, payments and accounts, and I'm going to inject some insurance in there. Phase 2, they start to bring in more advanced payment capabilities, variable recurring payments. Let me introduce some other products outside of banking. Phase 3, let me bring in pensions. Let me bring in brokerage and so forth. And to me, it's fascinating how, I did a stint at Deloitte before joining, Fintech Galaxy. And I remember my last proposal I had worked on was actually for the Central Bank of Bahrain to launch a fintech office. And they did. They launched the fintech office, and I'm happy to say Deloitte won the deal. And then they actually worked with Accenture to launch the instant payment network. And building on that, now they're launching the open finance framework. So in the region, I would say these 3. But just as honorable mentions, I have to say that Egypt, again, my homeland, although I am Canadian, but I have to admit, I still have the roots. They are also one of the only countries outside of the GCC that have a regulator sandbox. And Jordan just launched one about 3 weeks ago. So these, in my opinion, are some of the countries where we are seeing a lot of traction when it comes to fintech and fintech innovation and development in that sector.
Thank you, Abe. Thank you for a very thorough research into this topic. Serena, would you like to...
I breathe this every day.
Serena, would you like to add?
Thank you. Actually, I couldn't agree more. It's definitely, if you're looking at the 3 leading countries, those are definitely Bahrain as a pioneer and Saudi Arabia as, I would say, the new standard setter, and the UAE as a market initiative leader. Now, it started in UAE as a market initiative, a market-led initiative, and then is continuing with the support of the government and of the central bank and the free zones. And I'm very glad that you said that Saudi Arabia is leading by example now, because we have supported SAMA, the Saudi Central Bank, in defining their fintech strategy 2030. So all the numbers you have mentioned, and the development and the contribution of fintech to the Saudi GDP by 2030. and then the downstream effect of all these into the tech infrastructure, into building talents, into bringing funding to fintech, into empowering fintech Saudi to do more and more. And then finally, open banking, and we also defined the open banking. I mean, we have supported Sama in defining their open banking strategy, designing the framework, and now they're working with Accenture and OpenAPI to define the technical standard. Testing with the banks, new use cases is definitely the new standard set together with Brazil, most likely. Yeah, so I definitely agree with you. There are also other components now, right, that are part of the overall environment and economic ecosystem of the GCC as tax advantages. We can't deny that, Saudi Arabia has 5% corporate taxes. UAE is introducing corporate taxes. Well, try to find me another country in the world where you pay 5% corporate taxes, right? It's still an incredible competitive advantage for the region to have firm establishing here. And this actually accelerates the fintech ecosystem growth in the region, because while government initiatives support the indigenous ecosystem, you get like the right conditions for international and global fintech to actually enter and establish themselves in the region. So you're actually able to also get more talents. That's maybe one of the challenges that we currently have, and nurturing this as the financial technology global hub of the very, very near future now.
Thank you, Serena. Thank you.
I just wanted to add one thing that also Serena mentioned about, how SAMA particularly is following, a process that really has an engagement with the market. So even maybe 2 days, no, yesterday actually, SAMA is reaching out to the market participants, and they're saying, give us your ideas. We are now doing phase 2. What kind of payment use cases do you want to see? So it's not like, although it's regulator-led, but they're not just sitting in a room with the big 5 coming up with use cases and saying, implement these. No, they're saying, give us your ideas. What do you think? And what I really love about their approach is that their use case is not like a functionality. It's not like domestic payment. That's a use case. Or cross-border payment. No, it's actually, give me a business scenario. So when you look at the use cases they launched for account information, they say, being able to submit your taxes to Zatka directly through open banking. It's really valuable use case. Or being able to say, I would like statement as a service. LG, I want to generate an LG automated directly to the requester. And this is what I love. And this is one thing that Bahrain, when they did it, they did not follow this approach. But this is why we're saying it's becoming a golden standard, but it's also teaching some of the other regulators, even Bahrain, how to do their next phase of open finance.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Serena, blockchain and crypto have become a mainstream area for innovation in recent years. What do we see in MENA region playing out in this area?
Well, that's super, it's very, very current. So it's crypto. I mean, we have been discussing crypto blockchain for the last few years in the region, and finally we see really, and it started last year, the UAE pioneering globally this space. So the UAE started with the blockchain strategy at national level, and then with ADGM 2018 with the first crypto regulation to license, supervise virtual asset companies, and then finally March 2022, and I'm very proud of this initiative. I mean, it makes me the establishment of VARA, the Virtual Asset Regulatory Authority. I mean, VARA is not only an extraordinary attempt of the UAE and Dubai specifically, to become a global crypto hub, right? But it's also a really, really pioneering initiative globally. Vara is the first, only global virtual asset only regulator. I mean, if you think of the rest of the world, try to imagine how many new regulators have been established in the last 30 years. A couple. Just one in South Africa, just because they changed the regulatory framework, right? So, but it's really like so extraordinary and focused on virtual asset that demonstrate the real willing of this emirate to invest, to focus, to attract companies, virtual asset service provider, to attract talents, to attract investment, to establish investors and consumers protection, to make sure that this environment finally becomes a more secure space to play with on the normal, normal person standpoint, and also to make sure that awareness is spread. So I think it's really a unique attempt. I'm very sure it will be a successful one. Obviously, we are in a bit of on a storm in the crypto world. Then obviously, I mean, there is a regulation, there is a law already that established Vara as the regulator. There is a regulation that is going to be issued shortly, definitely first half of this year. And this is only Vara, right? Then we see ADGM. ADGM has been maybe one of the first regulators globally establishing a virtual asset regulation for virtual asset service providers. They are continuing updating it. They are now launching the new update with NFT. They're launching the update with DeFi. I mean, it's extraordinary. We see the whole world's regulator, dealing with obviously the mess that FTX brought in the picture. But these regulators in this world are not stopping and continuing, keeping pace with new thing. And yeah, and then I would say that the other big trend in MENA is definitely CBDC. I mean, a few that obviously is a way of central bank to use and test and learn blockchain or other type of technologies, and also to leverage digital currencies, right, for both wholesale, retail experiments. Sama and the UAE Central Bank again pioneering this space with Project Haber 2019-20. Project Haber was a great proof of concept. They tested a blockchain to have like cross borders wholesale transactions between the two countries with a new digital currencies. Then now UAE is testing again with China, Thailand, and Japan, a new form of CBDC, again for cross-border transactions, for settlement purposes. UAE Central Bank is testing its own digital currencies as well, with multiple purposes: retail, wholesale, in-house, cross-border. So it's a great opportunity as well for the Middle East to keep pace with innovation in this space. And Egypt, so just since your heart is close to Egypt,
Yes.
Egypt,
Yes.
I mean, in Egypt, they're great adopters, right? I mean, they use crypto and digital currencies to hedge against
It's true.
inflation, so and depreciation of the currencies. So that would be actually a great
use case.
spot, a great use case as well for CBDC. I'd love working with the central bank there and do more.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Kokila, Serena touched on a lot of the topics when it comes to regulation and blockchain in this area. Are there any other developments that we should know about, and what kind of opportunities these regulatory developments uncover for the region?
So both the speakers have covered that whatever is happening in the region is what the globally everybody is looking at. This is the first time we're seeing Middle Eastern countries leading this whole innovative digital space. So with Central Bank of Bahrain coming out with a regulation, especially for cryptos way back in 2019, creating a sandbox and testing out the first crypto exchange in the region, going through that whole life cycle was impeccable. And then to see other exchanges follow suit, and like Binance getting a full-fledged crypto exchange license from Bahrain was a great use case for this region to be proud of. And then, yes, as Serena mentioned, 2018, when the world was still trying to understand ICOs are a bust, or are they a myth, or are they frauds, ADGM came out with the first consultation on it. And then we had the first crypto asset regulations that came out from ADGM in 2019. It's gone over 3 amendments so far. So you see these regulators where the world is still deciding on whether we should ban cryptos, are cryptos legit, not legit. You have these regulators who not only accepted it open arms, but even giving out you the clean framework on how a crypto asset service provider, a virtual asset service provider, can launch its business without any risk. We started working with one of the first crypto exchanges that got licensed from ADGM way back in 2019. And I must say it's been a great journey for us, because we could see a regulator not just coming out with a framework and say, that's it and you need to follow it, but getting equally involved with all these virtual asset service companies and accepting that, okay, this is what we need to change. So that whole agility that's there in the tech is there in the regulations and the framework as well. And 2020, when ESCA came out with a consultation for virtual assets, now that was again something that we are now hoping, because they've revived those consultation again, and January end those consultations will be final. So we will even have a federal authority coming out with the whole working space for virtual assets. And then as Serena has spoken about VARA being set up in March, and looking at a very unique business model where it's not the regulations that came first, it's the market that was already there, and that whole MVP phase that VARA launched, which is successfully going to be finished now, got the global attention, got a lot of large players to come to UAE and understand what Middle Eastern countries can offer in this whole virtual asset space. And interestingly, let's not miss out what DMCC did with Crypto Valley and with signing the deal in Davos, 2 years back, creating that entire ecosystem for all companies in blockchain and virtual asset space, not in the regulatory landscape, but definitely the other service providers, proprietary crypto trading companies, blockchain companies. And we saw more than 500 companies came. So one of the challenges that even before this, Mohammed Al-Balushi was mentioning, is always getting the right talent to the nation, or the lack of expertise in this. With those whole DMCC's initiative, we saw a huge talent pool coming to UAE. So it's not just the financial regulators like ADGM, ESCA, VARA, and yes, DIFC came out with the law in 2021, and then they came out with the following law on virtual assets in 2022. It's not just the financial regulators, but other licensing authorities like DMCC, helping the whole ecosystem to grow. So with the whole country, and I said the region's focus on growth of fintech, and specifically in the whole blockchain virtual asset space, it's really impeccable how this region is leading this whole space globally.
Thank you, Kokila. So here in this region, it seems like regulators are supporting a lot the blockchain space, and is that a signal that they are open and they are going to open more, and why or why not?
So interestingly, as I said, that these regulators are very open and very easy to approach. Like, I've been here for almost 20 years, and trust me, 5 years back, could I just walk into DIFC and say, can I meet with the regulator, with the DFSE, or have Mohammed Al-Balushi talking here on the stage would not have been possible. But we're seeing that how that whole growth and adoption is happening at the licensing, at the government authority level. So yes, we see them, they're already very approachable. You can go and discuss the whole sandbox setup, the sandbox from DIFC or from Digital Dubai Authority, as well as from ADGM and what Central Bank of Bahrain's been leading, is what globally we know many regulators. So we've done some consultations in Europe, and they have looked at the base model of what CBB launched, or what the whole DIFC sandbox that started with the whole ITL, Innovation Testing Lab, started 3 years back. So it makes you get that whole sense of pride that this region is what, it's usually been the other way around, where this region's been absorbing instead of leading this space. But in the whole fintech space, I see this getting even more and more innovative, where the regulators, and especially with the whole Metaverse Assembly discussions, so they're very open to feedback. They're very open to understanding what's the pulse of the market and what needs to be done in this space.
It's great to see a regulator leading innovation. It's
Absolutely.
quite unusual, usually. So we talk a lot about fintech innovation in this space. Let's talk about the impact it has on the economies of the countries that lead in this space, and also the impact on the society itself. Abe, can you weigh in on that?
Yeah, sure, actually. Just actually what I mentioned earlier, when you look at ecosystems where fintech has a higher level of maturity, you typically see that there is a very strong correlation, a positive correlation, with the number of jobs created, the GDP, the health of the economy. And what's interesting is when you look at the region, even when you look at, the UAE, I recall, our founder and CEO in one of our, town halls, she was saying that, Sheikh Mohammed Nahyan said, the day I sell the last barrel of oil, I will celebrate. And it sounds very strange, but it's because his mind is already focused on the future, saying, I am going to grow the small, medium enterprises. I'm going to grow the alternative revenue sources for the country. I am going to grow, fintech, in essence, is really what's coming. And, the numbers that I had mentioned for KSA, again, just to recap, when we say KSA, in their plan, they're saying $1.2 billion contribution to GDP, and then increasing the jobs. Just in a couple of years, 6,000 jobs, and then 5 years after that, triple that number to 18,000 jobs. And when you look at it also from a societal perspective and the impact on people and the ecosystem we're in, one fundamental difference about what fintech is solving in other parts of the world and what fintech is solving here is here we do have a much larger unbanked population. Unbanked and underbanked. So it's not just about not having a bank account, although we do have a lot of people, especially those blue-collar workers, etc. But as a result, fintech has been actually focusing a lot in this part of the region on how to increase and enhance financial inclusion. And recently I've been having a conversation with the Central Bank of Bahrain, and again, being the pioneers that they are, they're starting to think of concepts such as financial citizenship, not financial inclusion, financial citizenship, learning from countries like Brazil. And this is the type of impact you will have to society, where it's not just about giving people access to financial services, it's about empowering them to access the financial services, empowering them with the knowledge and the know-how. It's not just financial literacy, it's also about ownership and accountability. And we've seen this happen in many countries where regulators are starting to measure their own success based on KPIs associated with these type of metrics. It's no longer just about number of fintechs, number of licensees. It's about how am I adding value to society. And again, as a reflection on our own experience, just a couple of days ago, we're licensed in Bahrain and we're going through the process to get licensed in Saudi. And we had to go through the sandbox process, we're a fintech, for the record. And guess what? our first submission was purely like, B2B, we are supporting aggregation, la, 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 la. And then after we heard some feedback, so we decided, like, you know what, Sama, hold on a second. We're going to come back in a couple of weeks. And we went back as a leadership team and we started thinking, how do we create an impact to society? Because that was kind of what they're looking for. They said, we want innovation, but we want it to add value to the communities. We want it to help us achieve the FSDB. We want it to help us achieve. And you know what we came back with? You're just going to love this. We said, forget PFM, forget BFM, personal finance management and business finance management. How about family finance management? And yes, it's been done in some parts of the world, Go Henry and some other models, but it just goes to show that even as a regulator, they are looking at not just create more revenue streams or how are you going to help the businesses, how are you going to help the communities and the societies. So I really think fintech is the next big thing when it comes to really driving GDP, really influencing the economy. As soon as CBDCs become mainstream, we're going to see also some massive changes in how the economy operates. And let's face it, when you look at some of the regs that come out when it comes to fintech, and it comes to data sharing, and it comes to creating that open, connected ecosystem, we went from open banking to open finance to open data to an open economy. And that's really what's going to happen next, and that's the gist of it.
Thank you, Abe. Very beautiful put. Kokila, would you like to add?
No, so what Abe has mentioned is absolutely bang on, and it really pops my eyes every time I see how this region's growing in this space. And with this whole Sheikh Mohammed's drive, I think in 2016, when the world was still trying to understand what's blockchain, Dubai came out with a blockchain strategy and announced it that by 2022 we'll be a fully blockchain-enabled country. And somewhere we've reached that matrix where you have all the governments and ministerial departments working in this space. So yes, it's got a huge impact, not just on the economy, but even on the society at large. Like, I've got small kids around my house and they talk about blockchain and Bitcoin and it gives me immense pleasure. And I'm like, this is what we talked about. It's not the future, we're living it now. And UAE is leading that by example. So when you have regulators like ADGM who've come out with consultation, now they're doing the whole consultation for foundation structure for DAOs, where we're still trying to understand that how will this come to my family, impact my family, my house. It's here already happening. When we're looking at the initiatives being taken for retail payments, both from central bank and the other financial regulators, to include even crypto assets in it, we're talking about our grandparents, the older generation like me, looking at using these tools. So it's got this huge other alternate side, and I think in 2020, we did an entire paper on the landscape study for alternate investments in the region, and it is one of those products which have been very easily adaptable because of the large section of underbanked, unbanked population that still does not have an identity. So when we're talking about doing a digital citizenship, the first problem that comes across is that how will I identify? How will these identities be created? So imagine we've gone in these spaces, and currently we're working with two of the governments in this region who've looked at straight away going to the space of digital ID. Instead of just creating one ID, we're talking about we're launching ourselves in 5G. So it's got its impact, social, economical, political, anyways we see it. And as I always say, blockchain use and use of fintech is a mind shift change. So we see that whole intellectual adaptability also happening here.
So there's a lot of advantages in bringing fintech innovation and really driving it as the main...
Absolutely. It's advantages, it's a lifestyle now. And I say another 5 years or the next generation coming, they are growing this whole fintech era kids who's going to grow up.
Thank you, Kokila. So we've talked about opportunities and advantages of fintech innovation. Let's talk a bit about some challenges that companies in this space, especially in this region, have to manage when we talk about fintech innovation. What are the biggest challenges, and how do they tackle these challenges? Serena?
Sure. Well, before we move to the challenges, actually. Last comment on, because that's a beautiful story, no? The impact on economy, the downstream effect on economy, and the downstream effect on society. That are two separate discussions eventually, and that's the ultimate objective of the region. And if we think, and this is also related to the challenges now, that's why I was talking about, if we think of a near future, I mean, what we do, financial service in general, banking, they will be transparent. I mean, we are speaking about open banking. We are discussing about open banking. It is anachronistic. We should be speaking about embedded finance, open data, right? That's the real impact on society. Financial services are still, not tangible. Healthcare is tangible. Agriculture is tangible. Technology is tangible, right? So I like to think of, this impact on society being at a certain point, obviously powered by technology, powered by artificial intelligence, being at a certain point, having, reaching this stage where we have real embedded finance, so will be totally transparent and is an enabler for us as citizens and as a society to access, high quality services in terms of infrastructure, in terms of healthcare in premise. So challenges to get there, right? Challenges to get there, especially in this region. This region is amazing because it's I always say that the things that in Europe happen in 10 years, here happen in 2, right? So
Very true.
well, but what are the challenges that we really need to face here that are different from Europe to reach this level, this objective? Definitely talents. We are doing a great effort in importing talents, importing great experiences, importing great firms, but talent is obviously a challenge. We don't have the immigration flow that the UK has. If we think of the UK fintech sector, only 40% of the workforce in fintech in the UK is from the UK. I mean, 60% is immigrants, basically. And the great thing they have there, they have like the gold tech fintech visa, right? That's something the UAE is experimenting in certain sectors of the economy. That's very important. There is definitely a challenge that I think is kind of being addressed by different regulators of technology, infrastructure, tech infrastructure, data storage. Notably, Saudi Arabia has obviously issues of data storage, that data needs to be in the country. We have, kind of engaging into discussion with cloud providers. So that's certainly, a barrier for fintech to enter the country. There is a challenge of regulation. I mean, regulation is being addressed by single, separate countries. Amazing efforts, amazing and very comprehensive efforts, but of single countries. This is the GCC, Gulf Cooperation.
We need an Arabian Union like the European Union.
And you as practitioners, right? I mean, you have this challenge because then you have to apply in Bahrain, you have to apply in Saudi Arabia, you have to establish that, and all rules are different. Where is passportability?
Yeah.
So that's another dream for the region maybe, but I think, and even if we think of the UAE now, the UAE has 60 plus free trade zones. I mean, you really need to understand the regulation of each of them, right? And then eventually out of these 60 plus, only 2, 3 are financial free zones, right? ADGM, DIFC, I mean, DWDC/VAR, I mean, that's a gray area, but with crypto. But yeah, you need to understand the differences. Do you go for mainland, or you go for DIFC, or you go for ADGM? You need to study every time. So yeah, I would say I would cluster them mostly in this, regulation and regulatory alignment, tech infrastructure / data storage, especially for Saudi Arabia. But I would say this is going to be addressed
It's
very
not just
soon.
Saudi, even Egypt has the same challenge.
Egypt as well, and talents. And maybe the last one is exit opportunities for fintech. You don't have maybe this issue because you're big enough, right? But yeah, the IPO market in the region, as a matter of fact, is not developed as it is elsewhere, right? So there is a challenge for great experiments and great innovative ideas to actually find exit opportunities, and so funders might be somehow discouraged.
If I may just add on to Serena's point on regulations, one of the main challenges, I think, which globally and especially in the region that we have, is that these laws and legislations also need to be developed. So we are talking about a civil code, we're talking about enforceability of what these regulations are going to come out with, or these companies are going to offer their services. We do not have enough, what we say, in the legal language, we'll say we do not have enough jurisprudence on it, or we say we do not even have enough experience of that. How will these be taken in a court of law? So
the legal framework around it.
The legal framework, yes, we're talking about coming out with new regulations. So there's going to be a huge trial, I think, in the next 10 to 15 years to see when the disputes in these arise, when an FTX situation, God forbid, happens in this region, how will the court of law look at it? How will these different mediations that we're talking about, how will that be? And what is the impact of the whole metaverse, which we're talking about a virtual world where you have different avatars of yours, and if my avatar gets robbed, my avatar gets... we just had one scenario, and this was covered globally, when an avatar was... the allegations were of a sexual harassment. How does that impact on Earth, or on like here? How are the courts going to look at it? So I think that's going to be a challenge which, over the period of, say, in the next 10, 15 years only, that we'll get to see.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. I really appreciate all your answers. I think it's very inspiring what's happening here in the region, and everybody is going to keep an eye on the developments. Thank you for your time today, and thank you for listening.
It's our pleasure. Thank you for having us.